Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Radio Dead Air Tech Q&A. You've got questions. We've got guesses. I'm Nash. Been doing Radio Dead Air for ages and ages. In addition to that, I'm also an IT professional. With me, as always, my producer, Mike Gearman, also works in IT. We are taking your questions tonight. If you have a tech question you would like help with, send that to requests@radiodeadair.com, and we can help you out. How you doing, Mike?
Not too bad. I never want to do another voice over IP phone rollout again. I'm gonna, because there's still buildings left to finish. But
Stupid thing. There are so many buttons on this thing, and I hate it. There are too many buttons.
You bought it, didn't you?
Yeah, it doesn't mean there isn't too many.
You could have bought one with less buttons.
Coulda.
You could put a piece of cardboard over the buttons you don't need. That way you don't push those buttons. You could put big glowing red stickers on them saying, "Do not press, end of the world," over the buttons you don't need.
Be nice, but it doesn't work that way. So we've got
let's face it, a glowing red button that says "Do not push, end of the world." People would push the button.
We've got news stories this week. I'm trying to get everything sorted here. Come on. Too many screens open. There we go. Okay, this here. Every time I've consistently kept getting bigger monitors at higher resolutions to give myself more screen real estate, and it's never enough. Years and years of this. It's never enough.
I have sort of the opposite problem. One of the pieces of software I use, if you use it on a bigger screen with a higher resolution, you know what happens? Everything is smaller.
Because you're not scaling your stuff properly.
Because their code doesn't allow it to scale properly.
Well, that's because it's Blizzard, dude.
No, that's not Blizzard. This is a piece of music software that I use. Oh. They're supposed to be working on a scaling fix.
Anyway,
but that's been 2 years they've been saying that.
So before we get to news stories, I got something in the mail today that actually kind of amused me.
Was it from me?
No.
Okay.
It's here. It's
okay.
A bit of this little. Let me see if I can get a bigger picture here to share with everybody, because I did take a picture of it. New tab. There we go. Put this over here. And yeah, there's the picture of the ad I got in the mail. It is from a company called Now Internet and Now Mobile. $55 a month. Exactly what you need, nothing you don't, et cetera, et cetera. A whole new internet company. Mike, you ever heard of these folks? Now Internet?
I have not, but the way you said a whole new internet company makes me think it is a rebranding of an existing internet company to fool people who do not investigate. Well,
if we bring it over
Was
here,
I right?
If we bring it over here and computer enhance, let's blow this up a little bit. Computer enhance. Let's see. This is on the other side. Now Xfinity.
See? Rebranding.
And of course, Xfinity is a rebrand of Comcast. So this is...
Everyone hates Comcast.
Yeah. If you haven't been following along at home, Comcast has been having a bad time. They've been losing subscribers. People have been going to stuff like fiber or even 5G hotspots, or basically just anything to get away from Comcast, because everyone hates Comcast.
Comcast couldn't be run worse if Zaslav was running it.
The whole thing here, they send these out and they make it like, hey, it's a whole new internet. And I want to point out that they call this Now. The only other cable competitor in this area is a company called Wow. internet, who actually I have internet through WoW instead. So calling theirs now in the same market as WoW seems
Okay, so it could be
that's a little
shady.
scummy. Well,
It could be. Well, I say it could be. It depends on if they're also calling it now internet in other areas that WoW internet does not serve. If it was a cross the board rebrand, let me put it this way, Nash. If I see one of these in the next week, then the scumminess drops a fraction because I don't have WoW internet here as an option.
But yeah, this is just this is something to be aware of if you're out there. This is in fact Comcast. You're going to get the same level of Comcast service, the same level of Comcast outages, the same level of Comcast headaches. Even though it's called now, it's still Comcast. It's still using the same network. It's still using the same coax lines. It's the same company. They just changed the pricing structure ever so slightly. So,
I got something funny in the mail too, but it's nothing nothing to go on and on about. And I got this. Which is a British publication. It's a satirical publication. But yeah.
all right. So let's
Comcast, Comcast or Comcrap is the two names.
So let's have a look at the news this week. What did I just do?
Slagged off Comcast?
Yeah, reopen that one. There we go. Why did I close that? It's got all the news stories on it. All right, here we go. First news story is kind of interesting this week. Now, I want to stress very much that when it comes to Chinese research, they don't have the best track record of being, well, truthful.
Yeah, that's the word.
They kind of make some really outrageous claims and only itty bitty tiny-ish sort of kind of hold up to that. But in this case, I'm not sure the whole, this is the best ever, what their claims hold up, but they all have the physical technology output, which as an alternative, we kind of need. All right. So Chinese scientists have claimed they have the fastest and most efficient transistor ever, and they've made them out of bismuth as opposed to silicon. Yep. Now, I do not believe for a second that these transistors are faster or more efficient than the best silicon transistors. I simply do not believe that. That's
so what their claims are. This is a GAA FET transistor, which is an all-around transistor, which I sort of kind of understand circuits was a long time ago, but
yeah,
they say this one is 40% faster than Intel's latest 3 nanometer chips while using 10% less power. Now, I'll be honest with you. If they had said 10% faster while using 10% less power, I'd find that more believable. I'd be going like, I can accept that. 40% faster is. Do you remember many years ago, cold fusion?
Yes.
Okay, so that was one of the earlier examples that I recall of extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof. And of course, didn't have it. And this is the same thing. You're saying 40% faster. That's immense.
Yeah.
And 10% also, less power, which means, but extrapolates to, well, doesn't that mean we could be the same speed for significantly more than 10% less power? Maybe the same speed for 50 or 60% less power, which, hey, I'd like that.
What this comes down to is these. I mean, we all still remember DeepSeek. We still have that bad taste in our mouth not so long ago. However, and like we can't compare them. There is no apples to apples comparison possible because they didn't make an 8086 processor out of these. No, we don't know what they made out of them, but so we can't compare them to Intel's. They didn't even make an ARM processor. We don't know what they made out of these.
They made, however, from what I can tell, because I did look up other articles on this. Mm-hmm. What they made is basically a sheet of transistors, and they said, "Hey, how fast can we turn these on and off, and run power through them, and do various transistory things?" And in a lab environment where they're basically, I won't say hand making each one because of the scale. But the other article I saw about this said, this is interesting if it holds up and you can actually make them at scale to make chips.
Yeah. Now, this is the very fact that they're making bismuth transistors that are, let's just say, even if these are a fraction more power efficient than current silicon CPUs, that's a big deal because of scale, and not scale of production, but because of scale of design. We've mentioned this before. Silicon transistors are coming up to, they're going to crash into physics very soon. The way we have advanced silicon transistors is to make them more powerful and more energy efficient, we increase the density. And the way that means the number of transistors on a chip, you make more. And the way you do that is you shrink the lithography, which this is not an accurate comparison, but imagine they etch the transistors into the stone. And that's kind of how lithography works with the silicon sheets. That's how they kind of create the transistors in the silicon. The smaller it gets, we are currently at 2 nanometers in production. I haven't heard anything smaller than that yet, but obviously it's coming. But the smaller the scale you get, the smaller you make the transistors. As we get littler and littler, itty bitty bitty bitty, electricity starts doing something that scientists describe as fucking weird. Protons and, they don't behave like you expect them to at a certain scale. They can jump. They can, the flow of electricity. Yeah, electrons. The flow of electricity and just go whee, and they can just go different places and shit gets weird. So there is a limit to how small we can make silicon transistors. And once we hit that limit, we're in trouble because we will not be able to make them any denser or any more energy efficient. The only thing we'll be able to do is make bigger sheets of the chips. Will have to get larger again. You have to have like this, to make the processors more powerful. And even then that becomes a problem because the larger the chips are, the further electricity has to travel. And then that becomes another issue in efficiency and speed and whatnot. The solution to this is if we could have a material where we can make the transistors more efficient already, that gives us a lot of breathing room. Because if say they're half as efficient, or they're half again as efficient as the most efficient silicon transistors we have right now, if we make one the exact same, then we have the power efficiency, which means we can increase the speed of the chips. We can do all these other things with the current technologies, well, the current scales and whatnot, and we'll be able to extend how we use transistors and technology going forward. It also doesn't talk about cooling these and how hot they get, which we don't know.
with 10% less power, again, that how thermally efficient it can get rid of the heat. But 10% less power would indicate some less heat.
Yeah, but if it's a matter of thermal efficiency of cooling, if we get better cooling with less effort and less gigantic heat sink designs and whatnot, or even just in laptop designs, if we can get rid of the heat faster and better without having to resort to such insane lengths, that makes a difference too. That makes a difference to power levels. In general, this could, big stress, this could be the next step after silicon. We need something after silicon. We are hitting the limits there. We need to come up with a new way of making transistors. We'll have to find out how this plays out, because we're going to need someone to replicate their findings. And until that happens, we can't take any of this verbatim. So, but it's still fascinating. And the idea of using a different material that's compatible with our current way of making electronics. Like we did this before. We went from germanium transistors to silicon. Germanium was the first transistor material we used way back. And it was unstable in such a way that all these many years later, if you have a germanium transistor, they might not be in specification anymore. They may have drifted in ways that silicon doesn't. So that made a big jump from germanium to silicon. Silicon to bismuth could be our next. We'll see. We do need something new. Speaking of, we'll see. So we've talked a little while back about the Apple tax and how Apple was ordered to stop preventing apps from having external payment around the iOS store.
And to let Epic back on the Apple Store. Yeah.
Not necessarily let Epic back on the Apple Store, to that if Epic complied with things, they could come back to the Apple Store. Well, it seems that Apple is not allowing Fortnite back on the US Apple Store. They've gone back to the judge, who was already really mad at Apple for lying under oath and such. Yes. And they've said, Apple is not allowing us to list Fortnite again, even though you said...
Which is why I said, let us back on the Apple Store as part of the judge's decision. So what happens here is that, let us back on the store. Apple goes, no, really, let's back on the store. Nah. And Apple's excuse is amazing. Their excuse is, we're not going to do anything with this app submission until the Ninth Circuit rules on our pending request for a partial stay of the injunction. Now, the way I understand these things work, you can get a stay on an injunction when you can show, hey, there is irrevocable damage we will suffer because of this injunction. We need a stay. But here's the thing. Money, as it turns out, is not one of those reasons. You can't say it would cost us money. Well, no, that's not the reason. And now if it would make you bankrupt, if it was something we would have to declare bankruptcy, that's a reason. Because might be letting people go, you might be selling off stuff. That's not applicable to Apple, because Apple has more money than God.
Well, also it doesn't apply either, because if you look at Patreon is already making their charges off app. They've already changed things to get around, and others are getting around it too. It's just Apple is being petty. Nothing
Yes.
else. No, there's no other word for
Because
it.
Epic is the one who got the decision. They're going, yeah, we'll accept other people's app, not yours.
Yeah, it's getting kind of ridiculous, and it looks like Apple is on its way to pissing off the judge again.
And as I've said before, don't intentionally piss off the judge.
And that
You've already
doesn't
done
look,
that, Apple.
and that doesn't look good either to when you're trying to appeal things either.
No.
They don't like that when you're trying to appeal those things. It makes them angry. Now, to be fair here, equal time. This week, Fortnite put out an update that had a AI voice James Earl Jones of Darth Vader. So fuck Fortnite, fuck Epic. Because never forget that Tim Sweeney is also a giant bag of dicks. Like Tim Cook, giant bag of dicks. Tim Sweeney, giant bag of dicks. They're all bags of dicks. Big old bags of dicks. So nobody is the good guy here. They are all, in their own special way, equally terrible. But it is kind of funny seeing the legal system go and knock down a few of these idiots just for funsies.
You really are a dick.
Yeah.
We need you to stop doing that.
Yeah, the Tim Sweeney, not a good guy. Not your buddy, not a hero. Awful human being. So yeah.
Makes horrible meat pies.
Speaking of awful human being, what are you doing? Charlie, get down. Charlie, you know your name. Get down. Down. Good boy. He's not stupid. He's just an asshole. So this last one, we talked to I think it was the week before last or about T-Mobile's lifetime guarantee. And it's come to you should not accept any advertising for a service that uses the term lifetime.
Yeah, well, I think there's been a few industries, a few companies in a few industries that have said it and meant it and kept it, but not many.
So if you are a customer of VPNSecure, and there were a couple of offers you found that were floating out on the internet. They offered it on WCCF Tech, I believe, Slashdot, if you found it. They offered for a flat fee, VPNSecure offered you a lifetime subscription to their VPN service. Hands down, you paid for it and you had access to VPNSecure forever. And then VPNSecure was bought out by a company called Infinite Quant Limited, which is a terrible name.
It is.
What is a quant?
I believe it is a South American or Australian fruit.
Yeah, it sounds like it, doesn't it? A quant.
It does.
It's not even fun to say. It's quant. It's
or it is a type of bowling in cricket that has been disallowed for the last 19 years.
Well, Infinite Quant bought out VPNSecure and discovered they claim they were unaware that these customers had lifetime subscriptions. And
okay, so so what they say is they claim we didn't know this, and so because we didn't know this, we got to cancel them because it's costing us too much money. Now, if they were a U.S. based company, I think I know how the courts would handle this. Please understand, I'm not a lawyer. Yes. Okay, so there's a few things in contract law and in purchasing other things. There's one called due diligence, which is mentioned in here. And due diligence is where you Find out about the thing you're buying so that you are not surprised about the thing you are buying. Now, sometimes they don't ask all the right questions. Sometimes companies hide things. We've seen that before in this show that they don't want the person buying to know about, because then they wouldn't buy. And this can be piles of hidden debt, all sorts of our corporate HQ was built on a Native American graveyard. There's toxic waste bubbling up in the break room, any kinds of things due diligence should catch. And there's a thing in contracts law that basically says when you buy something that had contracts, you have to uphold those contracts more or less. I mean, there's
Right.
to my understanding, there's certain restrictions and ways to get out of it. But we saw this with several years ago, or at least a few years ago, with Disney, where they tried to say, oh, well, we bought the rights to this fiction here. We just bought the rights to make it. We didn't buy the obligations to pay the author's royalties. And the court looked at them and said, that's not how that works, Disney, and you know that. And the same sort of thing here. When they bought this stuff, they have the obligation to maintain it.
Yeah, it's they essentially what they did was they unceremoniously canceled all of these lifetime subscriptions without warning anyone. Because we didn't know these existed, and we're not going to allow them to. Yeah, the 90% of VPNSecure's lifetime subscribers paid for the subscription over 10 years ago. And yeah, he says the CEO says there's no sustainable ways to support an inherited user base of thousands who paid once long ago through a different company, especially without VC money or outside funding. Too bad. That was the deal. The deal was lifetime subscription. If you try to, I imagine there's going to be a class action lawsuit over this.
But the implication I got from the article is that Infinite Quant, which is apparently different from Infinite Quant Capital Limited, which is a strangely similar name in a strangely similar part of the world, may just go, well, we don't have the money. We'll just go bankrupt. Which, by the way, bankruptcy is a way to get out of those contracts.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let's do that then. Sure. Okay, cool. Go bankrupt then. Goodbye. You'll still have to pay people off somehow. You're probably going to have a long list of creditors. It's just, this is so freaking irritating on so many levels. How someone can get to the level of a company purchasing other companies and just simply not be qualified to do any of this shit. Like, your due diligence. Come on, man. How did you could have Googled and found out this stuff very simply.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that's why it's called due diligence. I mean, apparently it was very easy for the Ars Technica writers to find out that, hey, no, these were offered up through 2022, depending on which site you went to. Because first the company said, hey, these were only offered from 2015 to 2017. And Ars said, no, through 2022. Why didn't you know that? And the response from the company was, well, the incomplete paperwork they gave us that they didn't give us initially when we bought the company said 2017. So, yeah, maybe there are some 2022s there. Again, due diligence failure.
You good there, buddy? That's your own tail, idiot. That's your own tail. Okay. He's fine. I'm sure he's fine up there. So yeah, if you are a VPNSecure customer, even if you aren't a lifetime subscriber, if you are a customer, get the hell out. The company is a mess. Find someone else. Anyway, let's get to your questions for this week. We got a couple. Let's see what we have here. Let's see, what is this crap?
You are going to have to be more specific.
I just got some crap in my inbox. All right, we got some extra stuff. Oh, wow, we have 2 more questions after this. All right, let's get to the ones we already have. This is first one's from Diego. Hello, Nash and Mike and Assorted Fluffs. I recently bought an RTX 3050 low profile to go in the office PC I gave under my TV. I have under my TV. Pardon me. I've been running into a problem. Every so often when I open a new program, usually Chrome, Steam, and VLC, the screen will go black for half a second with a message on the TV saying image quality changed and will come back with this color slightly off. I thought I'd fix this by turning off hardware acceleration on Chrome, but it started happening again with Steam and VLC. Any clue what might be causing the issue? It's a bad driver. Do I need to reinstall or some hardware settings I should look at? Okay. That's weird.
Okay. So my first thought is that for some reason the programs are changing the screen resolution. You see this in games a lot, where it does a full screen mode, but it's not doing the full screen capability of your monitor. It's doing the full screen capability of whatever the game said full screen is. And some things, when they change the full screen resolution, will change the color depth.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm thinking that's what's going on here. But
maybe.
I don't know why Steam and VLC would be doing that, because normally they're just like, no, full screen, we're whatever resolution you're at, man, we're fine.
Yeah, the first thing you should definitely try here is, and to be fair, just so you know, NVIDIA's been having some driver weirdness of late. Typically it's been regarding their 50 series, but we don't know if there might be other issues as well. So first thing you're going to want to do is, let's see, it's a 3D, where is it? Driver cleaner, where is it?
Yeah, you want the official, if there's still an official NVIDIA driver cleaner. Basically, they'll go to and find
There isn't an official. You want display driver uninstaller from Guru 3D. This is not technically official, but it is the best application for doing this. The first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to uninstall the NVIDIA stuff yourself by hand. I'm going to go through the Windows uninstall process. Then you're going to go to guru3d.com and you're going to get Display Driver Uninstaller, otherwise known as DDU. And you're going to download and run that. And you're going to clean off every NVIDIA thing off your system. Then you are going to download the NVIDIA driver and install it again and see if that takes care of the issue.
And there's probably going to be a couple, 3 reboots in this process, by the way.
That's the best advice I can recommend because you have a very strange issue. And there's no error messages, so.
And so the reason for this is a lot of times drivers leave behind little fragmentary files. Now, sometimes, fragments of previous drivers. Now, sometimes it's not an issue, and sometimes it is. And you know what I was thinking of with the professional, the branded uninstaller? I was thinking antivirus, because the antivirus companies do have their own branded full cleaner uninstallers.
But
at work, I do that much more often than display drivers.
So yeah, that's the best I can say for right now, Diego. It's a weird one. So if it were me, I would try the drivers first. If the drivers don't do it, I would, if at all possible, switch to integrated graphics and see if it behaves the same way. If you have integrated graphics available for this. I don't know what CPU you have. But I would switch to integrated graphics and see if it behaves the same way, because that would isolate it to be either a system issue or a hardware issue. And if it's a hardware issue, there might be something up with that 3050. So
Okay, so also just for Steam, and then I don't have VLC on this computer, so I can't say that. Steam, under the interface settings section, there are a few graphics options that you might choose to individually toggle off and see if that fixes it as well. The ones I'm all speaking of all have in parentheses after them requires restart. Now that's probably restart of Steam, not the computer. So I'd give maybe those a try as well, because there is some GPU accelerated rendering on there. There is hardware video decoding on there. So those may be doing enough video changes in the background when you fire it up that it's going, changing the resolution and the color depth. But I would try the drivers thing. I agree with Nash. I think it is drivers.
No. All right. Next up, this is from Kent. Hi, Nash, Mike, and his sort of floofy overlords. I've used uBlock Origin as my ad blocker of choice for some time. Unfortunately, it stopped working with Vivaldi, my browser of choice, since Vivaldi is Chrome-based and Google has updated to be incompatible with extensions that do not conform with Manifest v3. Now, if you don't understand what Kent's talking about here, recently Google made a change to Chrome with their Manifest v3 thing. It's the way that extensions interact with Chrome and the underlying settings. And they changed it in such a way that conveniently things like uBlock Origin, which was a very powerful anti ad blocker, stopped working. And they had to come up with a version of it that would work, and it's not nearly as effective. Also, conveniently, Google's largest source of income is ad revenue, but that's just a weird coincidence.
It is a weird coincidence. I mean, they are being hit with antitrust right now, so that may change.
So uBlock Origin will not work with Chrome or any Chrome derivatives because it's in the basic part of how Chrome works. It says, as such, I'm looking for new ad blocking options. There are two approaches I'm considering, like your input on which you'd recommend. First, which ad blocking extension would you recommend for Chrome-based browsers like Vivaldi? If it blocks YouTube's ads, even better, though I understand that's becoming difficult. Second, I've considered blocking ads at the router level as well. I've looked at a few ways to do this, including setting up an ad blocking host file on the router, switching to an ad blocking DNS server, or using local AdGuard or Pi-hole setup. There's an approach to the tool you recommend. Any insight you can provide? Okay, Kent, neither of those approaches are going to work out well. The ad blocking on the Chrome-based ones are going to miss things because the way they've designed it now, you can't get to the underlying nuts and bolts of Chrome to actually block things like you could before. So there's not going to be a replacement for Vivaldi. And doing it at the router level, DNS-based host file, you risk part of what the ad blockers do, uBlock Origin in particular, is they manage to block certain things because they get trained on what is garbage and what is not. So they can block things from a certain site coming through, but they can also let some things go through that you need.
Yeah.
If you try to straight up block all ads on, say, a Google site, it loses its damn mind. It won't work right anymore because there are parts of the data that have to come through and parts you don't want to come through that are related to the ads. uBlock Origin has trained itself to learn how to do this so you can keep browsing like normal without having to worry about the other stuff. Doing it at the router-based level, you risk breaking a lot of websites and you won't know why and things won't work right anymore and it will be at the router level, so there's nothing you can do about it. Honestly, my best recommendation here is probably not one you're going to like, but if you want to keep blocking ads the way you were before, your best option is Firefox. Because Firefox did not make those changes, and they still have the same version of uBlock Origin that Chrome used to have. It still has all the same capabilities. It can still block all the same things. Firefox doesn't get in its way. It allows it to do all that stuff, and it works.
There's also the Brave browser, which some people like, some people don't like. And while it is Chromium based, it is very strongly privacy and ad blocking based, and is saying, oh no, we're not going to. I mean, they may implement Manifest v3, but they're also putting stuff in there saying, no, we're still blocking all these ads.
Me personally, I've Firefox has been behaving itself for me. The experience is very similar to Chrome. uBlock Origin Lite works decently in Chrome, but there's just some stuff it can't do with Taco Boy T. If you want to try using uBlock Origin Lite, you can, and see how viable it is going forward. I like Firefox because I still have all the controls I used to before. It doesn't get in my way like Chrome does. Firefox does not have a vested interest in ads like Google does. So, I should say Mozilla doesn't have a vested interest in ads.
Although, one thing to note, remember how I mentioned the Google lawsuits recently? So apparently one aspect of this is that Google wouldn't be the default search engine in Firefox if all these go through. And that would be a lot less money going to the Mozilla Foundation. And so they would have to find new sources of funding.
Mm.
So something to be aware of.
Mm. Well, so if you absolutely must, uBlock Origin Lite is going to be your best choice on Vivaldi, but otherwise, Firefox is probably a better option. Especially blocking at the DNS server level is very clumsy, and unless you know exactly what you're doing, you're going to break a lot of websites. It's irritating because they designed it that way, but that's just the reality of it. Okay, this is from Mabon. Hey, Nash and Mike, I hope the cats are behaving themselves. Between the tariffs, Microsoft trying to force people to buy new computers, and that question you had a few weeks ago about the 8-year-old gaming computer, I'm wondering, what is the standard life of a computer? I know it's a broad question, since I'm sure some computers are designed to basically fall apart while others are designed to keep chugging for the long term. Realize actually I have no good concept of this. For most of my adult life, I've had laptops until I bought a proper computer off your recommendations. They had ABS that was on sale for a Newegg. Can't thank you enough for it. Good. As a kid to teen, I think my family's had maybe 3 computers over that time, mostly used for work and school. Games were handle 90s jumpstart type games. I don't think I work my computer too hard. I enjoy games. I'm not a hardcore gamer. My computer probably takes more strain trying to keep up with efforts to learn how to make digital art than for my games. Whilst trying to keep clean cat hair. How long will it realistically last? And what are some things to watch for signs that something needs to be replaced before it becomes a catastrophe? All right. Boom. So let's start with the computers you had in the 90s. Back then, we had the length of time between processor releases was a good long period. We had the 8086 and the 286 were most of the 80s and early 90s. Then we had the 386 and 486. We didn't get the 586 / Pentium until late in the 90s. So, and even during all that time, all the older computers were still supported. And computers back then were much more expensive than they are now, relatively. So the idea of telling an entire office, hey, this new processor came out, so it's a good idea to replace every single computer you have. Yeah, trying to get that wasn't going to fly back then.
Yeah, that didn't fly. So let me interject there. We have basically a 3-year cycle at work. Our laptops get replaced every 3 years. Now, the reason for that for us is not because of processor lag or things of that nature. It's because that's when the warranty runs out. And so we get new computers with a new warranty.
It used to be, we got to a point, I think about 10 years back, I would say, I used to give the longevity of a system. If you're using a general purpose system, I would have said would be about 5 years, and a gaming system about 3 years. But then things started changing, and the general purpose systems got faster, and this is mainly because of AMD and Ryzen made a big impact in the development of CPUs. A while back, Intel very carefully kept the pace of processor development and speed increases, and then AMD just started giving it away like candy. So there was hardcore competition. Intel had to come out with faster stuff. AMD came out with faster stuff in response. And at the end of the day, by right now, we have this field of CPUs littered over the past decade that are decade plus, I should say, that are still 100% good for general purpose computing. Absolutely. The other big different thing that made a change there was the advent of the SSD. Hard drives used to be a big issue holding things back, and more CPU power and more RAM would make up for the slowness of a hard drive. Well,
not the small size of the hard drive. I'm going to sag slightly. I still remember my dad coming home from work one day saying how excited he was with his brand new work computer, and it had a 10 gig hard drive, and he had no idea how he was going to ever fill it.
Yeah. Well, then the SSD started becoming became normal. It became the default. And now that that's in place, the SSD added a big speed boost even to older systems that already were existing SATA systems. You added a SATA SSD and the things were suddenly so much faster again. Those factors have kind of all sort of combined to the point that general purpose computers, you get something that if you just want to browse the internet, do office tasks, do even stuff like Photoshop, all around tasks, you can get a computer from 10 years ago and it still theoretically is a perfectly viable system. In fact, the cutoff for Windows 11 is, I believe, systems from 2017. But technically, you can run Windows 11 on stuff much older, in theory. Not supposed to, but you could run them on stuff much older. So general purpose computing, at this point, if the system is running and feels relatively quick, there really is no reason to replace it. Now, if we're talking about Windows 11, if you're on a system right now that runs Windows 11, even if it's older, there is literally no reason to replace that system at all.
Yep.
Gaming, on the other hand, this is one where you have mainly the hang up when it comes to gaming systems is entirely the graphics card, almost entirely these days. True, there are some older CPUs that just they will drag down the speed of a graphics card to the point where even if you got like a super high-end graphics card, too old of a CPU, it's going to ruin the experience. But generally, if we're talking middle of the road gaming type stuff, we're talking like 1080p, even some 1440p stuff. All you really got to do is swap your video card and you're good. And I used to would say 3 years between video card changes, but with the increases of prices, and there's also been some stagnation in the performance points on the graphics cards as well, I would say that's stretched out now too to about 5 years on a graphics card upgrade.
I would agree. Barring you winning a lottery or having a rich uncle you didn't know about leave you an inheritance.
Essentially, with modern systems, as long as the computer is in good working order, you keep it cleaned. Pardon me, my stomach's upset tonight. You keep it cleaned, you keep it look after the software, run updates as need be, you should be fine for indefinitely. Now, of course, there are always the things that hold back a computer, anything with moving parts, which is old style spinning drives. Those will eventually go bad. It's not a question of if, it's when. Power supplies, too, they have a fan in them, and they can eventually go out as well. But those GPU, I mean, just to give you an example, that computer I was working on last week, the media server, the one I built on the stream, it's got a 10-year plus power supply in it. It runs nearly, continuously. And because of the changes that have been made to power supplies to where they keep the fans turned off until it hits a certain temperature. So the fan even gets a little bit of a cushion benefit. It doesn't have to work itself as hard. These things are lasting longer and longer, which is probably why Microsoft is trying to push everybody to replace their systems for the Windows 11 upgrade.
Didn't they also do that with Windows 7?
Not really. They didn't. With Windows 7 did not make.
There was another version of Windows several years ago that they raised the specs on.
Not as much, and even then,
yeah, maybe not as much. Yeah,
even then, the old stuff still worked. You could still install stuff on them. It still worked. Yeah. There was nothing in there that said, "Oh, we're not going to install on this." There was none of that.
Well, there was, but it was software companies doing that, not Windows.
Sign something needs to be replaced. You will notice blue screens. Obviously, frequent blue screens will be a sign that something is going wrong out of nowhere, especially. Always keep backups, keep frequent backups. If you restore a backup and you're still getting blue screens, that's definitely, nothing's changed otherwise software. You may be on the edge of something's going bad and you're going to need to have that looked at and replaced. This is specifically for Intel's 13th and 14th gen processors. Those were built with a fault in them. They have a flaw, and they will potentially, because they were made badly and the software was badly and the BIOSes were screwed up, they will slowly degenerate over time. If they've already have some degeneration in them, there's no way to fix them. If you have an Intel 13th or 14th generation processor, you should watch it. There have been fixes for it, but if it already had damage from before the fixes were implemented, it's always going to have that damage. And eventually it's going to give way and go done. But in general, we've had a point where you can keep a system going much, much longer than we could before. Laptops are another exception here, mainly because batteries in general, it's usually just the battery that's an issue with laptops. If you're lucky enough to have a laptop where you can manually replace the battery yourself, you can probably keep that one going for a while. But if you don't, and the battery is built into it and it's glued in and crap, like with your phones, there's not a lot you can do. So unfortunately, that is what it is. Now, and even older systems, I want to stress, if you don't need them for specific gaming, specific applications that are Windows only, you can keep those systems going longer by using Linux. There is a bit of a learning curve, and you're going to have to figure out some stuff. But Linux will give older hardware a new lease on life for a longer period of time as well, because Linux it's coded a lot better than Windows. Let's just be perfectly honest about that. But for a system you have right now, 7 years maybe you should get a good life out of a system. Before
and some components will last. Hello, Grady. Some components, like the case, barring actual physical damage, will last forever or until the hardware layout changes so much that you go, oh, this doesn't actually fit in this case anymore.
Yeah, if it still follows the ATX standard, like I said, that system I was using, the one I rebuilt on the stream, that case is from 2015, 2016. It's the Cooler Master N400. It's a little bit older in design and style, but it still fits all the parts and it's not gone bad. And it has plenty of ventilation and cooling and whatnot. So cases are hard. As long as the case is still intact, you can keep those for like indefinitely.
Someone I know, this was years ago before I moved out here, was putting together a new computer in an old case and discovered that because of the way the motherboard had changed over the years, that the memory was now in such a position that you could not put in. This is one of these little desktop, flat box things. You couldn't put in the CD drive anymore. The CD drive wanted to go where.
Then that wasn't an ATX standard. That wasn't an ATX layout.
Yeah, I'm just saying this. It can happen. It doesn't happen in modern systems until they make some massive change.
If it's an ATX standard, it's an ATX standard. They haven't changed the ATX. They haven't changed the ATX standard in decades. If it fits in ATX standards, it's going to fit.
I'm kind of wondering how he managed, to be honest.
All right, hopefully this is going to be a fairly quick one. This is from Hank. Hi, Hank. Hi, Nash and Mike. Out of curiosity, for someone buying used parts for a PC, what's the oldest generation you recommend right now for Intel and AMD? Same with graphics cards. I want to get a good deal and put something together that would be a good system, but it wouldn't be useless to me at the same time. All right. For Intel, oldest generation I'd recommend, if you're buying used, 12th generation. Probably be the oldest, because there really is no point getting anything older than that. 12th gen is good because you can get a motherboard that supports DDR5 with 12th generation, which gives you some room to go forward with your upgrades and whatnot. When it comes to AMD, if you're going to be on an AM4 motherboard, there really is simply no reason to get anything older than Ryzen 5000, because you can find Ryzen 5000 processors like they're like grains of sand on the beach right now. There are so many of them you can get used. So because
everyone's upgraded to AM5.
Not just a matter of upgrading AM5, they keep making Ryzen 5000 processors. They keep making new ones. So there are plenty of Ryzen 5000 processors right now. You shouldn't get anything older than Ryzen 5000. There's just no good reason to get a Ryzen. There's no good reason to get a Ryzen 3000 one. There's no good reason to get like 2000. Ryzen 5000 should be the oldest AMD CPU you get. Now I wouldn't go, oddly enough, if you're going used, I wouldn't go with AMD or AM4 because again, the DDR5 thing. If you can do Intel 12th gen with DDR5, that's a pretty good system, and it will keep you going forward, and you'll be able to transfer your RAM to the next one. If that's not a big issue for you, well, if you're going used, I think transferring parts ahead is going to matter. So it's mainly the DDR5 thing. That's just me personally. It's my little hang up there. I would keep an eye on the type of chipset for those motherboards. Like I just got a B660 motherboard for the media server. It was a used one. It came out of an Asus gaming system. It works just fine. B660. You're gonna, if you want to get one that overclocks, Z690 is what you're gonna need. Don't worry about Z790. There's not that much of a difference between the two enough to warrant getting Z790. Z690 boards, if you care about overclocking. Otherwise, B660 are good. Graphics cards. The furthest you want to go back with graphics cards are NVIDIA 3000 series. because the 2000 series is kind of falling out. So don't get anything older than RTX 3000. And with AMD, don't get anything older than the RX 6000. 3 generations back on either. The RX 5000, they work, but they're very first generation ray tracing and FSR, and it has limitations. Same thing with the RTX 2000 series. It was the first version of the tensor cores and the ray tracing and all that, if you care about that stuff. And it shows its age from the 2000 to 3000 is a big jump in performance. So yeah, going too far, you don't need to go way further back than that. You will find some good deals on that stuff. Like I was looking for the processor for my media server. I got the 12600T, which is the low power one, but I was looking at the same, price level. The 12600K, the i5 is, I believe, is that it's 20 core, I think. No, 20 core. It's a 20 thread, 6 cores. I think it's got 6. It's got 6 regular cores and 8 efficiency cores, so it's a 20 thread CPU. That's a good CPU, 12600K. Just note that there's some weirdness with the 12th gen, because there's some, like my 12600T is only 6 core 12 thread. It doesn't have the efficiency cores. So you have to look very carefully at which model you're getting to see which number of cores and stuff. Yeah. So, yeah, that's my recommendations. Don't go back any further than Intel 12th gen or AMD Ryzen 5000. And I would steer more toward the Intel than I would, because even though it's a pretty much of a dead platform, the Z6, the 600 and 700 series Intels, they do have newer stuff available than the older Ryzen ones. If you do go with a Ryzen AM4 motherboard, don't go anything older than the 400 chipset. Do not get the 300 chipset. It was the first generation of Ryzen. While it will run a Ryzen 5000 CPU, you'll be missing out on a lot of features. Your 400 is good. I believe that has PCIe 4.0. Don't get a motherboard that doesn't have PCIe 4.0. It's kind of, it's not a good idea. All right, we got a couple new ones in. I'm going to try and get to these quickly. Not to shortchange people. Ooh, okay. Mara's got a big long one here. Okay. I don't want to shortchange people. All right, let's see what we can here. Okay. Hi, Nash, Mike, and the Army of Floofs. I've been looking to future-proof my current setup. Acquired an ASRock B650 motherboard. That's good. And have some questions about parts and components. Should look for certain upgrades. 1, will the current RAM sticks for my DDR4 Asus B450 motherboard be compatible with the B650? No, it won't. B650 runs DDR5. So you're going to have to replace the RAM on there. You're going to have to get for B650 DDR5 6000. You don't really need anything much faster than that. DDR5 6000 CL 32. You'll see that on the recommendations for it. There is faster, but for Ryzen, you don't get a whole lot of benefit from much more faster. DDR5 6000 CL 32 or high or lower 30, 28. That indicates faster speed on RAM. So you're going to need DDR5. What GPU is compatible with B650? Any current GPU is compatible with it. You have a GTX 1660 Super. It will work in the new system, and it'll hold you over for a while. If you what best to shop from? If you're looking for something new, it's not a great time. But your current card will work. I would recommend looking for used cards as well. That's probably going to be some better deals available for there. Similar to the above, regarding CPUs, current CPU, Ryzen 5 3600X. CPU is included with motherboard. It is not. You're going to need to get a new CPU with that motherboard as well. I would recommend getting, just to make sure you get something that works and something that works good, the Ryzen 5 7600. Excellent deal. It's much faster than what you currently have, and it's a pretty, good all-around system to base things on. 4, I have Crucial P3 2TB PCIe 4.0 M.2 SSD. Would that drive work? Yep, it'll pop right in, no problems. Would anything else about my current setup behind GPU and RAM need upgrading for the B650 as well? Let's see, it's got your system here. It is a Asus pre-built. Let's see, to bring it up on screen. Ryzen 5 3600, 6060 Super. Yeah, there's probably nothing else you're going to be able to take out of there. Your graphics cards you'll be able to transfer over.
Graphics card. You'll need it. You'll need the new motherboard. You got the new motherboard. You'll need a new processor, new memory. Run what? Probably around 250 to 300.
Yeah.
But you'll be able to take your old processor and old memory and maybe put those on eBay, get a little bit of that back.
Yeah, you get a little bit of that back. Pretty much everything you have. This system is, while it is a pre-built Asus system, it is an ATX system. So everything in here will work going forward. In fact, even here's great news. Your cooler should transfer forward as well. Or maybe not, if that's a weird one. That might be a weird one.
What's the model on the computer?
I see the Asus latch on it. It'll transfer forward.
Okay.
Yeah, that'll work with an AM4 cooler. Will work on an AM5. So the cooler will transfer forward as well. And with a Ryzen 5,
but that's not
Ryzen 5 7600, it'll work just fine. So you can keep your graphics card, the case, the power supply, the hard drive. You're just gonna have to replace the CPU and RAM. Everything else will still. You got a new cooler recently? Okay, good. All right, let's see. And you had another question out here. It's a separate inquiry. I've also been shopping around, researching various monitor brands, searching for a decent upgrade. Using an old 30-inch Vizio and 50-inch Samsung with resolution limit of 1080p by 60 refresh rate. Hoping to find a 27-inch 2K 1440p resolution that's 225 or below. Not brand picky. Like I mentioned the Innocent ones before you. ASRock, I wouldn't touch their monitors. It's probably not a good idea for an ASRock monitor. Let's see. Like
Asus are still okay, right?
Acer, I'd probably better. Let's see. Like Innocent is a good brand. I just can't see there's like let's see, monitors. Let's see. That's a bit much. Let's see. QHD, 1440p. Oh, wow. Okay. That looks like a hell of a deal there. I mean, it might be a bit large. Okay. It's a refurb, but and it is a curved monitor. This is from Innocent. That's a brand I'm using for my monitors. I've been having pretty much very happy with those right now. This is a 39-inch ultra-wide refurb. It's 1440p. It is 165 hertz refresh rate. And it's big. It's big, boy. It's the best thing I can tell you about it. It's a chunky hunker. It is slightly curved, but it still looks pretty good. I've had good luck with the brand. Asus, I've had good luck with their monitors, but they are, kind of Yeah, well, understand the 29-inch, it is still 1440p. It is not a 4K monitor. Larger, what you're looking for, space limited, yeah. But AOC is a decent brand. Let me see. There's just understand there's so many different brands of monitors to look through. It's hard to just say, this one. Okay, 27-inch or larger. Samsung, that's a good name. Let's see. Let's see what's the well, hey, this might not a bad one. Hold on. Excuse me. Let's see. Is this a curved or this is 27-inch? Hey, excuse me. Sorry. I was all sneezy there. Samsung has generally made decent ones, and this one is 27 inches. Is it QHD? No, it's 1080p. No, sorry, it's 1080. Dang. But I did see. That's probably why it's so cheap. It's a 1080p. Where's the limit on QHD? Yeah, QHD. Let's see what they have right now. Yeah, Asus has one. Asus tends to be a pretty decent brand. Dell, surprisingly enough, their monitors are relatively decent. Acer is good on the lower end of value stuff. They're not the best, but they're decent. Ruler2 said there's an Asus Tough 27-inch on Newegg for $150. So that, yeah, so they're basic. You're just gonna have to. It's like shopping for TVs with those is the best I can say. There are so many models, so many brands. It's hard. It's harder to say than just this type of CPU, this type of graphics card. Yeah.
Honestly, the best thing I would suggest you do for monitors is go to Newegg, put your specs in, or just put in the size, just a 27-inch monitor. And then on the left side, there's going to be a whole bunch of things you can check box off and say, this is my requirement, this is my requirement, this is my requirement. Filter on that, and then sort by number of ratings.
Yeah.
And look at those, read some of the reviews. The reason you want number of ratings rather than highest rated is because a brand new one could come out and it's got a 1 5 egg rating, and that floats to the top, but it's one review. Whereas something with 2,000 reviews and it's got a 4.5, that's more useful.
I would say the one thing to look out for is make sure whichever one you get is an IPS monitor, in plane switching. There's an older one that starts with a T. It's not as good of a video quality. OLED is nicer, but it can burn in. It's better for gaming exclusively, gaming and films. IPS is still pretty good for general purpose use and even gaming too, because I have 2 IPS monitors. So, all right. This is from EGC. Hey there, Nash Mike. Oh, so many cats. Why? I don't know. They just keep showing up. Recently gotten the local equivalent of a tax return, and since I'm in need of a new phone, my old one, while not overly old, is glitchy. And the battery is not necessarily long. I'd like some advice what look for, budget around 200 to 350. Since I'm not the US, here are the brands available to me. Apple, no. Huawei, maybe. Honor, no. Motorola, no. Oppo, no. Samsung, hell no. Xiaomi, maybe. ZTE, maybe. And Vivo.
No option for the Google Pixel phone?
No. Yeah, probably just depending on where they are. Pixel's not always an option here. Huawei and ZTE are less than ideal choices, each for their own reasons, but I put the list for completion's sake. Samsung's a bad idea. I don't trust them far as I could throw them in terms of longevity and product support and whatnot. So I mean, I've had Huawei phones before. The Pixel, or rather the what was it before, the Nexus 6P I had was a Huawei. Before, you know, the whole they're evil, they're Chinese, and blah 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 blah. Okay, fine, whatever. Xiaomi, haven't heard a whole lot about them, or Vivo. See, Samsung, good for monitor. Yeah, good for monitors, bad for phones. Because phones require a whole lot more support than monitors do. And longevity of support with Samsung is an issue. They will drop you like a bad habit, and you're screwed. I've had a couple of Samsung phones that I've just been screwed over on, and a television, a smart TV that I got screwed over on. Never touching Samsung again in my life. Because personally, you screw me over that many times, you won't get fooled again. Motorola. See, it would also, specific models of phone make a difference too. Just brands
Indeed.
alone. Yeah, brands alone are not going to be enough. So, of those, I'd look at Motorola or Huawei. I don't know enough about the others to say, unfortunately.
I mean, I don't even remember the model of my favorite, the brand of my favorite model of phone. It was one of the ones that had the long slide out keyboard. I'm like, I love that thing. It died.
Yeah, it died. It sucks when that happens.
I used it for 5 years. So, I mean, it had a good life.
All right. Well, that is gonna do it. Finally, yeah, that's all the questions this week, which is good. I like getting questions. That's gonna do it for this week. We'll be back next week, 9 p.m. Eastern Saturday. If you have tech questions for us, send those to request at radiodeadair.com or leave those in the comments of the YouTube. Thank you so much for being here, and for Mike and myself, we'll see you next time. Good night, folks.